to the Connecting Point. I am Dr. Marcy, your facilitator for this discussion today. This is the place where creators connect to inspire, share their ideas and stories to transform the world through raw and unedited talk. And today I am here with a very, very intelligent young man, of which you will find out. You will find out more about during the conversation. But this is Dr. Landon Lee. Welcome to the Connecting Point, Doctor.
Well, thank you, Dr. Marcy. Glad to be here. Excited to be here. Just grateful for the work that you do and what you've been doing over the years, and I'm just pleased to have this opportunity to spend some time with you today.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. And Dr. Lee, I always have to tell the Connecting Point, thus the name of this platform. And so, audience, y'all know what's the HBCU that's dear to my heart. I bleed purple and black.
Yeah.
This is my Morris Brown College brother, and not only Morris Brown, but also a musical brother. He is a part of Phi Nu Alpha Music Fraternity. And so those are two powerful connectors, okay? So that's the Connecting Point here, and I am so elated to have him join me for a discussion today, particularly because we're going into a new year.
Yeah,
we're going. Actually, when this airs, it will already be January 2022, yeah. And so I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about mental health. Okay, why would I be doing that? Obviously, this person can give us some insight on mental health. So, Dr. Lee, will you tell the audience a little bit about who you are in your profession and where you grew up and where you are now?
Okay, well, yeah, again, I am a mental health therapist. I'm a professional licensed clinical mental health therapist here in the state of Georgia, LPC. I run a private group practice entitled Empowerment Counseling Group, where we have 4 therapists that work with us in the practice. I've been doing that particular practice now about 3 years, but in the field about 11 years or so. Mm-hmm. And I'm originally from a small town called Greenwood, South Carolina, mm-hmm. And got here to Atlanta, Georgia through Morris Brown College, and been here ever since. Started off in that area of work, and initially doing some going to school for engineering, transition from there, finished actually in mathematics, mm-hmm. And got a little bit side in the music industry. I worked a little bit in the business side of the industry and did that a little while. But, in several different places, but ultimately I was led to mental health by way of actually clergy. I'm also a minister. Mm-hmm. I have a master's in divinity degree and had done a lot of work in church, and I'm pretty astute with Bible knowledge types of things, and did a lot of, I would say, spiritual counseling to a large degree. But one of the things that came to understand is that sometimes God places us in different places for different reasons. And one of the things that we have to learn is that we have to learn, and one of the things we're taught in mental health is to work within your scope of practice. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was struggling with, I know that sometimes I can help people a lot with scriptures and with prayers and with motivation, but some struggles people may be going through may be a little bit beyond just those tools that's mm-hmm. there. And mm-hmm. so I saw very quickly that there is a need to kind of further my studies and get a little bit more clinically trained to address some of the challenges that people may face from the mental health side of things. So that's kind of a little bit about where I am now. You know, I left out a lot of the in between, but we may can go back there or not, and we'll see how this goes.
Well, you know, because I am in education, and I get to see a lot of things, you know, social issues with children and family issues, so much. And I teach in the demographics of at risk per se. Some people would quote unquote say that. And my demographic is majority minority students.
Right.
And so as their teacher and listening to some of the things that's on their little minds and some things that they don't even speak of, that, you know, I do have intuition to pick up on. I want to talk a little bit about trauma. Okay. Because some of our children are experiencing trauma in society, in the home, in the community. And we often look at it as, oh, they're just acting out, they're bad kids. But we haven't talked about traumatic experiences that cause certain type of things to occur in a child's mind. So can we talk a little bit about trauma?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. That in and of itself is a significant component of why many people struggle, in particular the African-American community. Mm-hmm. Trauma is basically dealing with the concept where you have gone through some experiences that could actually cause some level of lasting effect on you through your nervous system, things that have triggered in your brain, different things that have taken place throughout your body, and certain things that may have found a way to kind of remain there, and you relive those particular experiences in different ways. Many times, many people have heard of the phrase PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress syndrome. And many times when we hear that phrase, we often connect that with military.
Yes.
We often connect that with people that are going off to war and experience these horrific things, and they come back and have these nightmares, cold sweats, and all these different experiences that they have, which is symptomatic of PTSD. Mm-hmm. But what we have to understand is not just because the person has been off to the military that they experience traumatic experiences. We experience traumatic experiences every day. And when you're dealing with this population that you're talking about, I worked at Washington High School for almost 10 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I worked there, not as a teacher, but I worked there kind of like a concierge. I was up at front in administration, but I dealt with a lot of children. I know a lot of them are my Facebook friends still today, and things of that nature. But so I've seen people, I know kids that lived in their cars, brilliant kids that graduated with honors, but their circumstances were very, very traumatic. And so, I mean, you have many kids that are, of course, latchkey kids. They leave school and there's nobody home. When they get home, they're getting themselves to home, get inside their home on their own. They experience murders in their community. They gunfire all around. It can be like a war zone right there in their home. And that, because it's not overseas and during wartime, does not negate the impact of that type of experience for anyone. So they're going through that a tremendous type of thing. And when we talk about this, so if a person is going not, and that's one level, just from what they may see and what they may experience. But the other piece can also be connected with their overall living experience. When you're living in poverty,
yes,
when you don't know where your next meal coming from, when you're dealing with a circumstance where you're feeling less than, when you're feeling like I don't equate, and I see someone else and the grass look green over there, and I'm minimizing who I am as a person. So these are some of the challenges that we get and what we deal with when we're talking about trauma. We deal with trauma left and right every day. Many people and still are going through it. Even as adults, there are many experiences that we go through.
And since you mentioned adults, oftentimes an adult that you're dealing with or have encountered may be experiencing that, and you're wondering what's wrong with this person. Why? But it's been looked over as just normal behavior. But trauma is a very real thing, and particularly, I'm saying, in the African American community, because that is what I see most. Now, I'm sure there are other ethnic groups that have this going on, but the one that I'm seeing more of is in the African American community. And it really bothers me, because I know I have some inkling that this child or this adult, this is not normal.
Right.
And so if they could only reach the core of the problem, maybe we can get somewhere. So yeah, that PTSD is a very serious thing in our community.
Yeah, and it goes even deeper than that, Dr. Marcy, because you mentioned the ongoing impact and the effects. But see, this thing is a generational thing. And when we're talking, there's a concept called generational trauma. And basically, this is a piece that's near and dear to me, because one of the problems that we see in the African American community is this hesitancy to seek mental health treatment. Yes. And this is something that goes back throughout our history. So this generational trauma piece, we are different than any other ethnic group that you may find here in America. America is a melting pot, but for the most part, we are the only group that was brought here by force. You go back to the slave trade. We were brought here by force. Now, there are a lot of other ethnic groups that have had trauma, Jews, Germany, that experience, and all of those different things in different places. But here in America, we were brought here against our will, and we were brought here as property. And in that whole experience, when we were brought here, we were taught to be fearful. We were taught to not speak up. We were taught that if you made a fuss, there was a consequence to it. And we were also taught that we have to be strong.
Yes.
And so when we look at it, first of all, when you go back to slavery, one of the things that was done to keep us in line was beatings. Okay, there were some of the things that we were done. The slave owner would physically harm you, would beat you to kind of keep you in correction and make an example of you if you try to escape, and all these different things. So, and they would also, what they would do was divide and conquer. They separate you sometimes from your family, they will put you in certain groups, different things to kind of manage and control. And so when you're looking at it as a loving mother, as a father, and you want your child not to experience some of these atrocities that may be going on, you're going to teach them, be quiet, be still, don't do anything. We go back to the movie Roots, and we see how they were telling Kunta, you got to be quiet, you got to do whatever. The point being is here that we were conditioned to take it. We were conditioned to be strong. We were conditioned to say that, I'm going to make it through, no matter how, no matter what. And that's good to some level, because it created some level of resilience. It created some levels of being endurance and making through. But what it also did, it created a barrier. It created a barrier that says, I can make it by myself. I don't need anybody else to help me. And also what it did, it created this facade that if I sought help or treatment, I would appear weak.
Weak. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would have this appearance of weakness. So that's how it started. And even today, as we continue through generations, one of the things that we obtain through history is that when our children don't do the things that they're supposed to do, in our past generations, many people were whooped. You know, they got beatings, they got what have you. That was learned behavior. And that's how we kept our children in line. And the research has shown that that's not necessarily the best way.
Right.
And we didn't give our children the opportunity to be heard. We don't hear what they're feeling. We don't hear what they're going through. You tell them to be quiet. You know, your children are to be seen, not heard.
Not heard.
And you put these types of stigmas on them. They grow up with this. You know, let me just deal with it. Let me not express what I'm feeling. Let me not say what I'm going through. So when you're going through those types of struggles, it's like you're conditioned. And so now you're telling me, okay, I need to try to do something else. It's hard to break those habits and those patterns. So that's where we are now. And that's why you're hearing so much talk on mental health, on the stigma of mental health. That's where it lies. And hopefully we're at a place in time where we can start breaking some of those chains and those bonds that's keeping us from getting the support and help that we need.
Yeah. And I think like I said, I'm an educator, and I think as an educator whose hands are on a lot, I teach all the children in my building.
Yeah.
More than one building. So think of the power of me being able to let children express themselves, to free them. And, in raising my own children, I didn't have to spank my children much.
Yeah.
And, my children will tell you now, we can look at you, and if you just said, I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah, yeah.
They said they would hurt them so bad for me to just say, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't have to put my hand on you. Exactly. I don't have to curse you out. I'm just looking at you and said, that is not my expectation for you.
Exactly.
Because who you are is better than this.
Absolutely.
And so if we could just change our language with our children, stop. One thing that irks me to no end, if I'm in public, it's somebody just cursing their children out.
Yeah, me too.
That's trauma.
Yeah, okay? It is.
You're inflicting trauma on a child.
It is. It is. You don't realize what you're saying is so powerful in the sense that language matters. Language matters, and what you're communicating to people really is impactful. I mean, you have to be very careful about the words you use, much less profanity and speaking down to your children or to anyone. And people may say, oh, they know I don't mean it, or what have you. But first of all, do they know you don't mean it?
That's
and
right.
Second of all, the damage is still done because you're sitting here, you call someone stupid, you call someone dumb, you call someone whatever derogatory term that you can come up with, and they can internalize that, even as adults. I deal with adults right now that's dealing with language from the past and current language that's being, cast upon them by either a loved one or someone close to them that it's damaging. They may not even realize that's what it is, but that's kind of where you end up taking ownership. And one of the things is being able to help a person understand that what people say to them don't define them. But we got to understand, the Bible tells us the power of the tongue.
The tongue, yes.
Yeah, it can destroy. It can do more than some of the other physical things that you can do, the things that you can say to a person, tear them down.
And, Dr. Lee, another thing that I try to be very careful at doing is not controlling people, trying to control them. And I was listening to you when you were talking about slavery and how we came from this system of control.
Yeah.
And so the language was used to control, the actions were used to control. And so I make a joke out of it, but it's really not a joke. I say a lot to people. I don't work well in environments where people try to control me.
Yeah.
Because I am a free being. And if I'm free, why do you need to put chains on me, chains on my creativity, chains on my way of thinking? Now, if I'm wrong, find a way to communicate that to me without trying to put more bondage on me. And you know, that's trauma. I'm just trying to point out these traumatic areas that we are using on each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To continue, and I'm just going to call it a curse, a generational curse. That's what you're doing. You just keep putting it on. And I've worked in predominantly Black schools ever since I've been teaching. I've had some that were predominantly white, but one thing I noticed between the two, and I've worked on both ends of the spectrum, is in our schools where it's predominantly Black, we experience the negative talk from children doing it to each other. Some circumstances where a teacher is doing it to a child. Yeah. Now, when you get in a predominantly white school, you don't hear that. Right. My daughter mentioned to me a while back, because both of my children had both experiences because of where I work. And my daughter started elementary and on up at a predominantly white school. She did not go to predominantly Black until middle school. And we often talk about how, she said, you never heard people joining people. You never heard people making people feel bad. If they were in the special needs class, you didn't hear about that. But when you get to a predominantly Black school, you hear the negative talk, you this, you ugly, you that. Where is it coming from?
Yeah, that's a cultural thing. That's a cultural thing.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a learned behavior.
Absolutely. All of that stems back to the slavery time, when people, talk down to you to get you in line, like you say, to control you. So we along with the beatings, along with the whatever else, we'll talk a certain way to make, and sometimes it is to make you feel bad, so you won't continue whatever behavior that you may be doing. But then those for instance, if you do that, sometimes when it's done in public, people will laugh. And so that becomes, especially when you're not mature, when you're dealing with children, they're not mature. The male brain does not fully mature until he's 25 years old. So the female matures a lot earlier. But the point is that a lot of times things that may be that you may consider funny is not really funny. It's hurtful. Yes. Yeah. And so a lot, and even as adults, as we talk about joning or whatever the case may be, there are certain things, that people can say, like, of course, we are accustomed to playing the dozen, talking about your mama and all of that. And if you're with the right people, and if you say it's so far-fetched, that it has nothing to do. Yeah, you can kind of laugh at it sometimes. But if you're talking about stuff that maybe it's a mother that has a weight problem, and you call my mama so big, she's so whatever, then that's hurtful. That's because you're talking about something that may have some tangibility to me or resonate a little bit. And so those types of things can be very harmful, and we have to be careful about that. And we have to understand, as much as we fight today, when we fight, racial profiling, we fight racism, we have a lot of things that we do to try to bring upon equality. And as such, we have to be careful that we're not perpetrating some of the same things that have happened to us through our language and through our experience and through our activities. So and we have to first identify it. That's one of the things. First identify that this is what this is where it's come from, and make a conscious decision. Is that something I truly want to continue to repeat in our culture? Yeah,
I pray and hope that we can start changing that all the way around, you know, from the home environment to the school, so that we can start seeing a difference and freeing people to be who they are. But there is another thing that I hear in mental health, a lot. I hear teachers say it. I hear people in my family say it. And I think a lot of people throw it around, but I want you to explain the clinical definition for OCD. You know, I hear a lot of teachers say, you know, I'm just OCD. I got to do this. I'm just OCD. I said, now, wait a minute. What is it? Can you explain what this is and why people are using it? Some people just using it just to be using it, not knowing what it really entails.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for that question. First of all, let me just do a disclaimer. Me personally, I'm a person that does not really buy into diagnosing people per se. Right. Not to say that there are not clinical diagnoses that people deal with, certain things, bipolar disorder, major depression, schizophrenia, all of those are bona fide mental health disorders that are out there. But one of the things that I've learned is that people began to take ownership of a diagnosis. So when a person is diagnosed with bipolar, they say, I'm bipolar, you know, or they take, they diagnosed with major depression, I'm depressed. And that's the thing that I have issue with. And that's actually one of the areas that I have a little bit of issue with AA or NA as such, because one of the things that they teach in those groups, support groups, is to own your stuff. And by saying that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict or whatever the case may be. And I don't fully buy into that. I do one of them. Yeah, one of my therapeutic approaches that I use is called narrative therapy. And one of the tenets of narrative therapy is called externalization, meaning that we externalize the problem and we separate the problem from the person. So Landon I believe Landon is a very vibrant, very smart, very loving, funny, caring person. That's who Landon is. Landon may be dealing with alcoholism, or Landon may be dealing with depression. Landon may be dealing with bipolar disorder. And so in narrative therapy, we say that the problem is the problem. You're not the problem.
You're not the problem. That's right.
You're not the problem. The problem is the problem. So I said all of that to lay a foundation of addressing OCD. OCD is basically, many people say it in the sense of when they find themselves just being at a place where they have to have everything a certain way. You know, you just may be a neat freak, or you may be a person that just like things in order. When you're dealing with OCD, you're talking about a compulsion. You're talking about something that's at a level that, you know, your rapid fire is something that you do instinctively. It's something that's done rapid fire. And you have to have things done in a certain order. You may have to walk a certain way and as such, and it kind of consumes you in a certain way. You have to kind of, it's almost mechanical to that level. Whereas a lot of people, you know, they may see a picture crooked. So I'm just OCD. So let me straighten this picture. Or so those are the kind of things. No, and it's just that you have a preference of how things should be, and you want things to be in order. And so people may say, I got mild OCD or whatever the case may be. But what I want people to do, I want to encourage people to not diagnose yourself. And even if you, one of the primary significance or purposes of mental health diagnosis is sometimes it's for medication management. Sometimes medications can help impact certain levels of circumstances and And so what you want to do, you want to properly diagnose so you can properly give the proper treatment as such. But the point being is, if even in those circumstances, there most of the time there's some form of therapy treatment that can impact and help in those areas. I want to explain one particular treatment model that I'm really fascinated with, because I believe that there's a spiritual component to it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily designed this way, but in essence, that's what it's called: internal family systems. And what that is IFS, and what that deals with is that there is components of our system that operates, that allows us to address whatever circumstances that take place. And what I mean by that, when I talk about the system, there is a self. There is the person that we were born. When we were born as an innocent, perfect being that God created and brought us into this world. And that's who, and I just described ourself as being our soul. Mm-hmm. And that's who we are. That's the genuine person that we are. But as we grow, we have various experiences that we go through. A lot of them, the trauma that you're talking about. Some of it may be dealing with just the overall environment, maybe gunfire, maybe, or some of it could be even more intense. It could be sexual abuse. It could be, just emotional abuse. It can be, environmental type abuses that can be taking place, and it creates a wound. And we call that wound an exile. That's a part of you. And when I start talking about parts, you're probably familiar with what another disorder that's out there called dissociative disorder. People used, call it multiple personalities, but now it's called dissociative disorder. And a lot of people think about Sybil, the movie Sybil, when we think about that. Some of my audience may be a little too young to know about Sybil.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But then we can say Split. that movie. That's the more. Yeah, that's Split.
That's the current one. And but the thing is that if a lot of people, kind of think, well, someone is kind of off, that's not really true. But in reality, all of us have some level of dissociation. It may be, it's on a spectrum. So you may be further on this end of the spectrum. And if you go way over here, then you may have actual literal personalities that split. And an example of that is if you leave today and you're saying, well, I need to go to the school. I got to go get ready for school to open back up. So let me leave and get ready to go. What's going to happen is, where the school is. You've been there 100 times, and you're going to get in your car and you're going to drive. And before you know it, you pull, oh, I'm here already. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be there, because what typically happens is our mind drifts and wanders in some other direction. Well, you just dissociated. You dissociate your mind. I do it all the time. When I find myself in the shower, I'm like, I got to get out of here. My mind is 100 miles away. And I say these things to help people normalize and understand when I'm talking about these parts. So these parts that we're talking about that one part, that wounded part, is that exile part. And then you have other parts that we call protectors. These protectors are there to help protect that wound. And that's why a lot of times people don't deal with that pain that's going on. And protectors, there's two levels of protectors. One is called managers. And for lack of a better term, we call the other firefighters. And I'll tell you why. The managers are things that you do constructively and proactively to help protect that wound. So I don't want to deal with this pain that I'm doing. So I'm going to exercise. I'm going to go to school, get another degree. I'm going to do whatever positive activities I can do to kind of help me move past this pain that I'm dealing with and move on. So those are managers. But then the firefighters are reactive parts. So when this particular pain comes up, when it's hurting, when it's doing whatever it's doing, you react to it. So you may react by using drugs, using alcohol, using sex. You may react by cutting yourself. You may react by suicidal ideations or suicidal behavior. All of these things are what we call firefighters that are reactionary, all geared towards addressing that hurt, that pain, that exile that's there. And so what we have to do in this IFS therapy is help that person become comfortable enough, allow that protector to give permission. It's going to step back and give permission to go in and address and try to heal that wound. So that's so when we talk about these disorders, so a lot of people, they're considered to be borderline. It's a terrible thing to call somebody a borderline. What do they even mean? A lot of times people just say those things because they can't understand what's going on with them. And there are certain criteria that meet the description of borderline. But anyway, all of these things, no matter what it is, it's some pain that they're dealing with that you can address and hopefully make that person better. So those are some of the things that's happening. So when you're dealing with, whether it's OCD, whether it's bipolar, whether it's, whatever, then there's something behind that particular issue that's going on that typically, if you address properly, then you can manage that. And then on some occasions, you have to manage that with medication, help balance that. But you don't want to mask anything. Sometimes people just, medicate, and not addressing the real hurt or the pain.
Wow. It is interesting to hear you talk about those things, because I'm sure other people hear it all the time. People just using it loosely. But before we get ready to close in a few minutes, though, I want to ask you this. Are there any disorders that cannot be treated and will not get better?
Well, there are conditions that you may have that you just live with and you manage. But I don't believe there's nothing out there that you won't get better. I think there's ways that that you can have a better quality of life. Now, there are some physical things that happen. Of course, if you're dealing with some mental issues such as Alzheimer's and dementia and those types, some neurological things that are happening in the brain. But even with brain work, there's research to show that a lot of the brain work that may have been impacted, certain of those things can be reversed. And even dealing with things like dementia, Alzheimer's, there's a lot of things out there that we're hoping to help and impact that in a better way. So there are certain things that once you move to a certain place, you may have a stroke and something that may impact your central nervous system and different things that happen that may be harder to adapt to. But when you're talking about mental health in general, there's not much out there that you cannot get proper, if you get proper treatment for, that you can't be helped by. So that's one of the messages I want to leave, is that there is help, there is hope. You're not just stuck in your place where there's no answer. And one of the big things about mental health treatment is the therapeutic relationship. And no matter what modality or theoretical orientation you're using, that relationship, I could be the best therapist or trained in a particular or orientation, and I may be excellent at it, but if I can't connect with you, it's void, is of no use. So that's one of the most, and there are some people that may, and you may have experienced this. If you have a person that one of the generalized therapeutic approaches is called person-centered therapy by Carl Rogers. And what that deals with, it deals with basically being present. So that if I can leave this with everyone, you can be a person-centered therapist, generally speaking, for anybody in your life, if you can find a way to be present, to be non-judgmental, and just be supportive. We call one of the tenets of that particular modality is called being a positive regard. I forgot the first part of it. And what that is that I'm being a person that being authentic with you. That's one of the reasons we don't necessarily recommend therapy from a family member or as such, because many times it's hard to make that separation. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want you to be different. So I find myself pushing you in a certain way. You should, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing that, because of my love and connection for you. I'm trying to change you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Therapy is not about changing the person. Therapy is about helping the person become one with themselves, understanding where they are, and for them to come to a level of wanting change for themselves and seeking a way to move. So we open that door, we help them see the pathways that they have, and then they make the choice. They make the choice. In motivational interviewing, it's like what we call a change cycle. You may be at the pre-contemplative stage where I'm just not ready. I'm not ready to make any changes. And all we're doing is asking, well, how's that benefiting you? How's that helping you? Mm-hmm. Are you able to manage that? Somebody say, yeah, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just doing my own thing. I say, okay, well, if that's great, then that's great. Then, because if it's different, then it becomes about me versus you. So if you're sitting here, if you're doing drugs every day and you're just, having and I don't like that, to see you that way, but you're fine that way, then my approach is trying to help me feel better because you're feeling fine. Mm-hmm. But the point is, if we have a conversation and you recognize that, well, I did lose my job, and because of my drinking, I got my license taken. I had got 2 DUIs, and because of whatever else, I can't see my children. Now you're contemplating. You're past the contemplation. You're contemplating, and that's what we call change talk. You're starting to, but now you, instead of me telling, well, you ought to, you lost your job the other day. You ought to. They may, and that when you're doing it that way, people put up a barrier. They're saying, don't tell me this because you're saying something's wrong with me. Let the person come to a level of understanding themselves to see that I want to change and move forward. So there's so much out there to get people the help that they need.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the last part of your statement about them knowing who. I'm going to paraphrase pretty much what you said, but when you're listening to someone in therapy or whatever, you don't negate who they are.
No.
They're true, who they are, who God said they are. And, a few months ago, God told me, I want you to see people as they are, not what they did, not what they're doing. Yeah. See them as who I say they are. Yeah. And once we can do that, then you reach this non-judgmental zone because you're looking at who they are, not what they did or what they're doing. Right. That is not who they are.
Exactly.
So until we get to that point, we can't heal each other.
You're right.
You just gotta be compassionate, gentle, and listen to folk.
Absolutely.
A lot of times when I'm
going to say, well, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, as an encourager, a lot of times in my heart, I want them to be doing something different, but I don't. I just listen.
Yeah.
I just listen. Yeah.
That's
because powerful. I know that's not who they are. The drug habit is not them.
Yeah.
The overeating is not them, because we didn't talk about that, overeating.
Yeah. All of those reactions. Those are reactions.
That's not them.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Yeah, all of those are reaction to an experience, to something that they're going through, something that this is the way they cope. A lot of those different things are happening. And the term that I was saying early with personal center is called unconditional positive regard. And that's important to understand, because what's important is that I'm going to approach you in an unconditional way. I'm not going to have a limit of where I stop my judgment. I'm not going to judge you at any level. You be authentic to who you are. And that's important, because when people we love, people we care, we want them to do better. And so we'll come to them saying, man, you got to get your act together. Come on, bro. You know, you got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing that. When you going to change? How long you going? That's not helping. We think we are.
It's not helping.
We are, but it's not, because what you're doing, you're making people feel bad about certain things, and you're not really getting to the core of what's happening. All you're seeing is the behavior, the reaction to whatever that's hurting, and they sometimes don't know. You know, they're dealing with whatever, and because of whatever they're going through, they go to this particular crutch that they use to get through, to make it through. And all we see is the crutch or the behavior that's helping them get through, but we don't understand the pain that they're going through. And sometimes they won't even share the pain. They're embarrassed about the pain. Think about it. It could be someone that was abused as a child, you know, and they're carrying that by a loved one, by an uncle, by a sibling, by someone that's close to them that they're too embarrassed to say. So they're carrying that, and whenever this pain comes up, they find ways to cope. So that's what we got to understand. When you see these behaviors that people are going through, don't judge them about the behavior, but try to help them. And it's not even necessarily our business as to what the pain is. That's another piece. Because sometimes you want to, like, tell me what's really going on, what's really bothering you. Really, it's not our business what's really going on or what's really bothering them. Our only goal is to be there to let them know, I know you're going through. I've been through. I understand that you're hurting. Something's happening there, and it's okay. It's normal to go through pain. I don't want to normalize it because I don't know what it is, but I want you to know that it's okay to feel what you feel, and I want to help you in any way I can. Help me determine how I can help you. If it's just so you can talk, just so, you know, I can be here and whatever, and we laugh or whatever, just let me know what's most helpful for you. So those are the things that we can do as a community to help each other. It's not to try to judge folks as much, and to be as supportive as we can for people.
Wow, amen.
Amen.
Now, you know, the conversation started with you saying that you were in the ministry at first, and then you went over into mental health and therapy. Well, listen, this is where they intersect. This is the connecting point.
Right.
When you genuinely love, show gentleness and compassion, and look at who they are in Christ, and then don't make it appear as their problem is who they are, because that's not who they are.
Absolutely.
Then we intersect those things that can truly heal a person.
Absolutely. That's it. That is absolutely correct. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Dr. Lee, I want you now. I know there's a way that people can connect with you and the Empowerment Counseling Group in some shape, form, or fashion, because listen, sometimes you need to go talk to somebody now. Come on.
That's right.
Don't be ashamed.
That's right.
Go talk to somebody if you need it. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about some things you got going on now, or how the audience can connect with you if they need help?
Certainly. So what I want to do, you gave me a great segue in regards to when you were talking about connecting mental health and our faith. I actually work with an organization that's entitled Faith-Based Mental Health Therapy Initiative, or Faith-Based Mental Health Initiative. And what we do, we're basically trying to bridge that particular component of mental health treatment and faith. And what that simply is dealing with, many of us are people of faith. That's one of the things that's gotten us through a lot of our trials, is going through our churches and our religious organizations to kind of help support us. And as I said before, that was some of the things that I was able to help people with, as far as trials, helping them through the word and helping them through prayer and through meditation and support. And so that's already a foundation. One of the things about mental health, many of the therapeutic orientation deal with what we call strength-based therapies. Mm-hmm. And what that is that we're looking to find what is it that is, what are your strengths that can help you, that you can rely on to get through whatever that's going on. So being that many of African Americans and other ethnic groups have a spiritual foundation already, mm-hmm. they come in with a strength. Mm-hmm. At one point in time, there was a conscious effort to separate therapy from, mental health and as such. But what we've come to understand is that there is a marriage that can take place that really, really can help us go through and become so powerful in reaching others and helping others through that foundation of faith. So what we've done, we've brought together a lot of professional mental health clinicians, along with clergy, along with people of faith, of all faiths. Mm-hmm. And we have this initiative, we call it the Southeast, but this is actually more of a movement, mm-hmm. because it's been there, but we're moving across the world, the globe, to kind of help address this particular issue. And one of the things we're getting ready to do in a few weeks here at the end of January 29th, we're going to be putting on a conference, faith-based mental health conference. And the theme for this particular conference is faith-based mental health therapy works. Mm-hmm. Now we've been doing these conferences over the last several years, but this particular year is actually, one of the primary goals is to break down the stigma that we have in mental health treatment. And one of the reasons the stigma is there is because, like I said, many times people are really looking at things such as, God is the answer. He's going to answer my prayers. Etc. What people fail to realize is that God has a healing ministry. He answers prayers through the earthen vessels that He's put on this
right.
earth. Just like your physical health, you go to your doctor and you pray before you go to him, and you pray for him and all those different things. And God uses that person to help you heal physically. Mm-hmm. Well, He can do the same thing in helping you mentally and emotionally. And so on this particular conference, again, we're going to have speakers from all over the country, really all over the world. Some are here temporarily, but it's going to be broken down in three primary components. The first is going to be an academic component, where we're going to share the research. We're going to share some of the things that have taken place and how we know. It's one thing for us, because we kind of know in our gut. We already know in our gut that, okay, bring God to the table and bring the mental health there, and it's going to be all better. But what we wanted to do, we want to show the data. We want to show the data that what people have experienced this type of mental health treatment, to show that it's documented that this thing works. So that's the first piece, and we have several speakers that's going to be working in that particular capacity. We have people from Cambridge University. We have people from Yale University. We have people from Emory University that's coming in to talk about the academic component. And then we're going to go to the practitioner component. That's where us as therapists that are actually working in that particular capacity of mental health treatment from a faith-based perspective. And we're going to have a couple of therapists talk about their experience and how that has benefited their clients as such. And then third, we're going to have a lived experience component, where we're going to have individuals that are going to come in and they're going to talk about their experience going through a faith-based mental health approach. And one of these individuals is a young man. He's a rapper, Some of the audience may know him. His name is Two Live Bree. He's going to perform. He's going to perform 2 of his songs. He's written songs about his mental health experience, about his faith-based experience. He's going to perform one at our intermission, and then he's going to perform another one towards the end. And then we're going to do an interview with him as well about his experiences. So that's one thing that we want to encourage everyone is going to be on the 29th of January. I believe we're going to start around 10 o'clock. And so you'll see information. I'll send some stuff to you. You can send it out as well, and we'll remind people about it. But we're encouraging this is going to be a powerful event because the goal is to solidify and help you understand that this is a power source for you. So if you're struggling with whatever, because the follow-up is that we're not just presenting information, we're going to also have a follow-up piece where we're going to invite people to participate in this faith-based mental health. We're going to have avenues for you to actually come in, and we got my particular practice is going to be one. We have several other practices that's there. That's involved. But as far as my practice, Empowerment Counseling Group, we're located here in the Atlanta area. We're doing primarily virtual right now because of the virus. As such, and we will continue to do that until things kind of change. But we're finding powerful work even virtually. We're finding some significantly powerful work. And if if you're seeking for help and you would like to get some more information, you can go to our website at empowermentcounselinggroup.com. Again, it's empowermentcounselinggroup.com, and our phone number is 404-244-6834. Again, that's 404-244-6834, and we'll be more than happy to do what we can to support you and help you. And if we can't help you, we got many colleagues that are out here that we can connect you with and help you in whatever way. So again, the help is there. You just have to be open to receive it. And this is what we're here for. And that's what we're all about. Wow.
Well, audience, you heard that? The help is there. And you better believe if I need you, I'm calling.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not no shame in my game. If I get to the point where I need somebody to talk to,
yes, ma'am.
You think I'm not going?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
That's right. Just like I go to the regular doctor if I don't feel good.
That's what it's about. Being transparent.
Yeah.
And sometimes we fail to understand the power of transparency. Sometimes, and I've experienced this personally, my family and I, when we chose to be transparent about a problem that we were going through and the things that we were dealing with, it was like the floodgates open. As soon as people saw that we were going through something, they're like, well, you know what? I got the same thing. Something going on with me. How did you do this? Whatever. Because people are walking around, troubled. They're in abundance. Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're just carrying these loads on their back. Everybody's broken. Everybody's broken in some type of way and putting on a facade. Make it plain, like you said, faking.
Faking, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, putting on the facade like everything, and we have to get to a point where we don't give other people power over our life. Don't worry about what someone else is going to say or think about you. You know who you are. You know your struggle. You know where you're going, what you're trying to do. Empower yourself. That's where our name came from, Empowerment Counseling Group, because we want to empower you to do what you need to do for yourself.
Amen. Amen. Dr. Landon Lee, thank you so much again for this wonderful insight. And you're such an intelligent man in your field, and we really appreciate it. Oh my gosh. You have answered some questions that I had.
Very good.
And I'm sure some others had, but they didn't want to ask themselves. But that's just it. So I thank you again so very much. And like I say every week, if you would like to be not a presenter, Lord have mercy, someone to come on here and talk about what inspires you, what you like to do, your story, something that can inspire someone else, please reach out to me. You can look up Dr. Marcy's Connections, Google it, or you can email me at drmarcyts@gmail.com, or you can join the Connecting Point for Creators group. Dr. Landon Lee is a part of the group. It's just a bunch of progressive creators. We're all creators in some facet, who just want to encourage each other, promote each other. So look it up on Facebook, the Connecting Point for Creators group. We'd love to have you. This show airs on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on Instagram TV, YouTube, and now you can also see it on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. at KBCN TV. Again, thank you, Dr. Landon Lee.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, audience. Until we get this moment again, peace and blessings. Bye-bye.